it's harder than I thought, harder than I thought. Yeah, it's harder than I thought. Oh, it's harder than I thought, harder than I thought, harder than I thought, yeah. Oh, it's harder than I thought, harder than I thought. Woo, oh, it's harder than I thought, it's harder than I thought. Just as a consolation, I can say I learned a lot.
Well, good morning, Northview. How are you doing this morning? It is good to see you. It's great to be joining everybody who's with us online. Welcome to week number 2 of Harder Than I Thought. This one I know is going to be really connecting with everybody today. How many of you, we're going to be talking about waiting on God. Waiting on God. How many of you struggle like I do to wait on just about anything? Yeah? We got a bunch of impatient people that don't like to wait. I do not like to wait. And there's a certain category of things specifically that I do not like to wait for. I do not like to wait at stoplights. Drives me bananas. As I'm pulling up to a stoplight, if it's turning, it's like, can I please, is it a quick look around? Is there a cop car? I am going through it, and I'm going to get past it before it turns all the way red. I'm one who believes that they go actually from green to yellow to pink and then to red. Anybody else, right? It's not red. It was pink on the way through. It was pink, right? Or if you do, though, you get stopped at the stoplight and there's a car in front of you and the light turns green, but they don't move. Oh, bro. Bro, and their head is down and they're texting or something like that. I hate waiting for that. Hate waiting for that, right? And you have to just be the Holy Spirit for them and just, lay on the horn. Get going. I'm in a hurry. I got somewhere to be. Where are you going? I don't know. It doesn't matter. Get out of my way. Get out of my way. I don't want to wait. I don't want to wait. I don't like waiting for the gas pump. You ever pull in and the gas pumps are all taken? That is the most frustrating wait for me. I don't know why. Because I just play this game of which of these 7 or 8 cars is going to get out of line first. And I'm guaranteed to pick the wrong one, right? And you end up lining up behind somebody, then it's a little crowded, and you can only go one spot now because you picked your spot. And the one that you got behind, that guy decides, I got to go back inside the store now. After I got done pumping my gas, I'm going to go in and I'm going to spend 15 minutes looking for the exact kind of beef jerky that I want. And then I'm going to come out and I'm going to frustrate you. I hate waiting. I hate waiting. I hate waiting for the gas pumps. I hate waiting in parking lots for slow people in parking lots. Walmart parking lot, Costco parking lot. They drive me crazy. I drive my wife crazy when I'm driving in parking lots because I get so impatient. I don't like to wait. I like to take the diagonal across the lot because that's wide open and there's no cars there. And everywhere else where there's cars, people are slow and there's people walking, and I got to take time. I just don't like to wait. I don't like waiting for my food. I really don't like waiting at restaurants. We pick restaurants sometimes solely based on how fast can we eat. Do you ever have a palate and a desire to eat somewhere nicer than your patience will allow you? Right? There are Texas Roadhouse nights that turn into Portillo's because I don't want to wait. I don't want to wait. I want to get going. I want to get moving. I've been known to pull up to the front door, seeing 2 or 3 families walking into the restaurant that we are going to. And I stop at the front door and make somebody in my party get out and get our name on the list in front of those 3 families that are walking in the door, right? And then once we get in the door, do you ever do this where you're judging every name that gets called before you? And you see a couple people who came after you get called for their table. Oh my gosh. Yeah, man. My anger goes up. I don't like to wait. I don't like to wait for food. I don't like to wait for a lot of things. But here's the reality. Here's the reality of my life, the reality of your life. We spend a lot of our life waiting. A lot of our life waiting. And it's not just when your kids are in middle school and early high school and you're sitting in the car waiting for their practice to get out or waiting for their party to release. I mean, there's a lot of waiting there, but life in general has a lot of waiting to it. We spend time waiting in line, waiting for news, waiting for an update, waiting for a promotion, waiting for a response, waiting for the next season of life. Sometimes, guys, honestly, we wait for the real hard, heavy stuff of life to get easier, to resolve, to fix itself. Maybe it's for healing. Or maybe it's for the medicine or a procedure to take place. Maybe it's you battle with something like anxiety or fear, and you wonder if it's ever going to go away. Or depression, you wait and wait and wait, wondering when are the skies going to part and the sunlight shine through. Maybe you've got somebody who's deployed, and you wait and you wait and you wait for them to return home safely to you. Maybe you're single and you're waiting for marriage, and you wait and you wait and you wait. I could list a whole bunch of other categories, but we spend a lot of our life waiting. And we know, we're told, that God is working in the waiting. He's working in the waiting. But we don't always see it happening. We don't always see his work. We're not always able to appreciate what he's doing. And so through these times of challenge and wait and personal growth that are going on, it's hard to live through it, because from our perspective, we've got it all figured out. Do you ever talk to God or think in your relationship with God in these terms? Like, God, I really don't need you to do anything other than what I've got planned. Like, you don't even have to think. God, I've got it all figured out. Okay? I need you to do this, and then this, and then this. And here's the timeline, A, B, C. If you just follow my play, just run the play, God. Just run it, right? And it's going to be good. You ever do that? And you just go, why isn't God doing it the way I do it? Why is this timeline so painstakingly slow? Does God ever feel slow to you? Does God ever feel like he's just not moving very quickly? Maybe that's because, as Peter says in 1 Peter, that with the Lord, a day is like 1,000 years. I heard one economist who read that passage, and he eagerly had this conversation with God and said, well, if a day is like 1,000 years, then to you, a penny must be like $1 million. To which God says, yeah, that's true. And he says, hey, well then, can I have a couple of those pennies? And God says, sure. Wait here a minute. Listen, his timetable just isn't ours. But one of the things that shows up in Scripture a lot is like what Psalm 27 verse 14 says. Wait for the Lord. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and take heart and wait for the Lord. This phrase, wait for the Lord, this command, wait for the Lord, is repeated 43 times in the Old Testament alone. 43 times. Wait for the Lord. I don't know what you take from a 43 time repeated statement, but what I take from that is, hey, this is something you need to hear. Right? If I have to repeat something to my kids 43 times, it means you need to hear this and you're not hearing it. I'm going to say it again because you didn't listen the last time, right? I mean, anything you say 43 times is something that's really important, that is also simultaneously never being heard. And so you repeat it, and you say it again, and you say it again. And if it's not explicitly stated, wait for the Lord, well, it's implied in just so many stories of faith. Take Abraham, for example. Abraham and his wife Sarah were childless, had been for their entire adult life, entire marriage. And God came to Abraham one day at 75 and said, Abraham, you are going to be a dad. You're going to be a dad. You are going to be the father of a great nation, and your descendants are going to be as numerous as the stars in the sky. That's laughable at 75. But God even made it more challenging because he made Abraham wait for 24 years before it came about. 24 years. I mean, how many of you at 75 would feel like the clock is ticking on this arrangement, right? The biological clock is ticking. And God had a plan in this whole thing because he wanted to do something that would be so incredible, there would be no other explanation other than God intervened and did a miracle. And he said, Abraham, I want you to walk this journey with me. I'm going to do something in your life that you're never, ever going to be able to imagine. Trust me. Have faith in me. Walk with me. Wait for me. Wait for me. If you know his story, he did wait. He had some moments where he didn't wait, but ultimately he saw this thing through. And God moved in his life in a powerful way and did every single thing that he said he was going to do. But it took 24 years from the time God said it was going to happen to the day he saw in reality it happen. God told the Israelites that he would deliver them from captivity. He would get them out of Egypt and into the promised land. But he didn't do it overnight. In fact, it took 400 years. 400 years. That's a long time. God did every single thing that he said he was going to do. But it was 400 years in the wait to make it happen. God anointed David in the Old Testament to be king. He said, you are the next king of Israel. There was a sitting king at the moment. His name was Saul. David, you are the next king of Israel. He had to wait 15 years for that to happen. For 15 years, he walked around knowing God had called him specifically to be the king. I have such respect. He had multiple times where he could have forcefully removed Saul, but he didn't. He waited. I have such respect for him. I've never been asked to be king. I've never been asked to lead in that kind of way. But when I was 29 years old, I was working at one of the fastest growing churches in the country. And I was asked to step in and be an ultimate long-term successor to the guy who was the lead pastor there. Phenomenal church, phenomenal elders, incredible situation. And when they first talked to me about it, I thought, this is great. This is really great. I mean, what an honor. So flattered. But in the days and weeks and months that followed it, I began to think, yeah, but when is that? I mean, when is that going to be? I mean, how far out? I mean, he's not going to quit anytime soon. Everything is clicking on all cylinders. He's not he's not ready to retire. I thought that's going to be at least 10 years. I'd been feeling God nudging me for a while to step into a new role and to lead and to preach. Man, that's going to be a long way out. I thought 10 years. It actually was 12. He just transitioned this year. David was a better waiter than me. God had a plan. He promised the Messiah would come and would deliver Israel. But you look at the Old Testament and how it closes, and you see hundreds of years of silence, where it seems like God was not moving at all, where he was not doing anything at all before Jesus came. But this theme of waiting on God, because God will ultimately do everything he's promised to do, runs all the way through the Bible, even to the very last words of the Bible. In the book of Revelation, John writes these words to close out his book. He says, behold, these are the words of Jesus he records, behold, I am coming soon. I'm coming soon. Well, soon doesn't feel like very soon to me. But in light of eternity, soon is pretty soon. In light of the big picture, soon is soon. And so we're called to wait. We're called to wait. And we ask the question then, but why? Why do we have to wait so much? Why does God make us wait? If he's all loving, why doesn't he bring us relief and answers now? Have you ever asked that? Have you ever wondered that? Like, God, the answer or the resolution to this thing seems so obvious. And it also seems so obviously in your will. So why, God, does it not fix itself? Why, God, are you not intervening? Why, God, are you not changing circumstances? I'm waiting, but nothing seems to be happening. Why does God do that? Why does God sometimes make us wait? I don't have the full answer because every conversation we could have on this topic is very nuanced. But let me give you a very broad answer to that question of why we wait. And here it is. It's because God's work in us while we wait is as important as what we're waiting for. There's something that happens in the process of the waiting that is actually incredibly valuable to God. We are changed and transformed in the process of waiting for what we're hoping for and what we're wishing for. You see, biblically, waiting is not just getting by and enduring time while we wait for what God is going to do. It's part of the process of becoming what God has created us to be. He's working on it. So in other words, if you find yourself waiting on God and feeling like something is wrong because I'm having to wait, take heart in knowing that this isn't foreign. This isn't off. 43 times in the Old Testament, the people are called, wait on God. Story after story after story of people who had great faith, had to endure great seasons where they waited for resolution, where they waited for something that God was going to do. Author and pastor Lewis Smead says it this way. He says, waiting is our destiny. I don't like that. Waiting is our destiny, he says. As creatures who cannot by themselves bring about what they hope for, we wait in the darkness for a flame we cannot light. We wait in fear for a happy ending that we cannot write, and we wait for a not yet that feels like not ever. He goes on to say this, and I think this is so true. Waiting is the hardest work of hope. Think about that. Hope would be a lot easier to hold on to if we didn't have to wait so long. That's the hard part. That's the hard part of hope, is that we have to wait so long for something to change or something to move. But God is working in that. And what he does in us as we wait for him to move or for a situation to resolve itself is as valuable as what we're waiting for, because it's in that process that God is ironing out the wrinkles of our faith. He's smoothing them out. He's smoothing us out. He's working on us in the process. God can see the things in our life that need to change and need to be made better and more presentable. I don't know what life is like in your house as it relates to laundry, but in our house, in the Rector house, there are 5 people, and we operate as it relates to clothes like it is a game to see how many sets of clothing we can go through in a week. Every day, multiple outfits, multiple dirty, sweaty practices, school clothes, practice clothes, after practice clothes, after practice, after shower clothes, after shower in the morning clothes, after shower in the morning clothes, school clothes. I mean, it's unbelievable the amount and the volume of laundry. We need 5 washing machines and 5 dryers at our house. And my wife and I, we watch this happen, and it's not a knock on anybody. This is just the reality that we've had to embrace. If you don't have this reality in your house and you have 5 people like us, we want to know specifically. I want to know who your dealer is and what their rate is. I want to know how you're fixing this. I want to know how you're overcoming it. Because we could do laundry all day, and you could turn around and you could find a pile equal to what you just cleaned sitting behind you. And so the volume is going so fast that what happens is the final stages of the normal process, where they come out of the dryer and then into a clothes basket, out of a clothes basket, and then into drawers, that final step rarely happens, right? Because there's just such a volume of an operation going on, we've just determined the most important thing is that they're clean. That they're folded, organized, in the right drawers is like, it's gravy. If we can get to that, okay. But that's bonus material, right? So most of it just goes big piles. And so then, because that's the reality, we start to know where the piles are, and you know what's in them. Hey, has anybody seen my red shirt? Oh, yeah, it's in the basket that's in, we don't need drawers, we just have baskets. It's in the basket that's in my room. Oh, okay. Oh, well, what about, have you seen my dark jeans? They're in the basket that's in the laundry room on the left side, right? The right side is the dirty ones. Don't grab those. But on the left side, there's 2 of them. Those are actually clean, right? So we pull them out. And then when you pull them out and they've been in that state, I mean, they're just sometimes not presentable. Can I just be honest? Like you pull out a shirt and you're like, oh boy, that's clean, but that's not presentable. And some of you teenagers need to be reminded, those aren't presentable. When you pull them out like that, they're not supposed to look like that. You're supposed to, so you iron them. And they don't know, my kids like, iron? What is an iron? We have Downy spray, Dad. We just put a gallon of Downy spray on it and get it soaking wet and then smooth it out on the back of the couch and leave it there to hang until I walk out the door. That's the routine at our house. And while it's a little bit crazy, I'm at least appreciative that we are working to get it presentable before we walk out the door, right? Because we want to put on airs like we got it all figured out to everybody else, even though we don't. But we want to make you guys think that the Rector family has it all together, so we smooth it all out because that's presentable, right? Guys, this is what God does to us when we wait. He's going, listen, I love you. I love you. But your faith is not presentable yet. It's a little wrinkly. It needs some love, right? I'm going to smooth some stuff out in you. I'm going to work some stuff out. And it's going to take time. It's going to take time for this to happen. And as we wait, the more we commit to waiting and being patient and waiting on God, it's like we're re-upping with him in this process and saying, I still trust you. I still trust you. I'll walk with you. I'm all in still. This is taking forever, but I'm with you. I'm still in this journey with you. So I want to talk real practical on how you do that, because that's the part that I think we all struggle with. Not that we will have to wait on God. We know we're going to have to wait on God, but how do you do it? Because it's hard to do. I think the key is staying active in your waiting. That sounds weird, but let me say it again. The key to waiting on God is being active and not passive in your waiting. Sometimes we wait on God in a metaphorical couch potato kind of way where we just sit and feel sorry for ourselves and we're down and we're frustrated and we're hurting and we're literally not doing anything because we're waiting for God to move. We're just waiting and we're waiting and we're waiting and we're not productive, we're not active, we're not moving. And there's something about how God made you that will cause that to be a harder thing for you to do if you wait passively than if you wait actively. There's something in the psychology of waiting, in how God made you, that is actually working against you if you kind of strip everything away and just stare out the window and wait. There's been some guys that have figured this out. In fact, there was an article, I thought it was so interesting, that was in the New York Times about the Houston airport. One of the places I hate to wait is in the airplane, the whole situation, right? Everything is a big waiting game. But one of the places you wait is for your luggage at the end of a flight on the baggage claim. And Houston airport had really high complaints about how long it was taking to get their bags. And so they put in all kinds of work, spent a bunch of money, hired a bigger staff, and they were able to reduce the wait time to an industry-leading 8 minutes from the time you got off your plane to the time your bags were coming off the conveyor belt in the baggage claim. And yet, their complaints stayed high. And they scratched their heads and they were like, dude, we just overhauled the whole system and people are still complaining about the wait. What can we do? And then somebody had the idea that, you know what? We have always tried to put the gate as close to the baggage claim as possible. What if we just move it and we make them walk a whole lot further to get to the baggage claim, reducing the amount of time that they're standing and waiting for their bag? It'll be the same amount of time, but they'll spend 90% of it walking and 10% of it waiting, rather than 10% of it walking and 90% of it waiting. And do you know what happened? This is crazy. All the complaints fell off. It was the same amount of time. But because you were moving and walking, and we should know this, parents, is every time you go to the restaurant with your kids, you're like, kids menu, please. Crayons, tic-tac-toe, some little game. Can we do something to kill it? Because if we have to just sit here and wait with these hooligans, like, it's going to be rough for everybody around us. Can you give us something to do in this time while we wait? In that same article, a guy by the name of Richard Larson His title slays me. The world's leading expert on waiting in lines. Can you imagine? Hey, what do you do for a living? Well, I study people waiting in lines. I am the world's foremost expert in line waiting. He says what happened at the Houston airport makes perfect sense to him. He said that the length of our wait is usually not as important as what we're doing while we wait, that the psychology of queuing is more important than the statistics of the wait itself. We tolerate, he says, occupied time, such as walking to the baggage claim, far better than unoccupied time, such as standing at the baggage carousel. You give us something to do while we wait, and the wait becomes endurable. That's what I want to talk about here for the rest of this time. To give you something to do while you wait. Because if waiting on God is going to be a reality for all of us, let's talk about what we can do while we wait to make the waiting endurable. Let's start here. Here's a way to keep yourself active in your waiting. Build expectancy that God is going to do what he's told you he's going to do by recalling his promises. Build expectancy by recalling his problems. Here's a place that I go sometimes that I don't like waiting. It's in the hospital. Waiting rooms. Waiting rooms in hospitals are not fun places to be. Anxiety is up. Your emotions are in a blender. You're feeling helpless. Some of you might be dealing with this right now. Sometimes you got a surgery or something going on. You know you're going to be in there for a long time. What do you do in those situations? You take a book, right? I take a book because I just don't want to sit there and stare out the window and just be thinking every second of every day. I take a book. Give me something to read. That's a great piece of advice. Take this book. Do something with that time while you're waiting. And take this book and allow God's promises to just keep speaking to your heart so that your feelings don't override your faith and you're able to know this is the truth. Psalm 25 verse 5 says, "Lead me in the truth and teach me, for you are the God of my salvation, and for you I will wait all the day long." All the day long. God's book is full of his truth, his promises, his love for you. Rather than sitting idle and staring out and just insufferable, fill your time by putting God's truth into your heart. Secondly, elevate your dependency through prayer. The more you have to wait, you have a couple different options. One is you can get embittered with God and you can separate and pull yourself away from him because you're frustrated that he's not doing what you want him to do in your time frame. Two is you lean into him and you become even more dependent, even more reliant on him. You keep the dialogue open and you don't try to power through the moment in your own strength, but instead lean into him in prayer. And you don't even have to say it always in words. Romans chapter 8, verse 25 talks about this when he says, if we hope for what we do not yet have, we wait for it patiently. In the same way, the Spirit helps us in our weakness. We don't know what we ought to pray for, but the Spirit himself intercedes for us through wordless groans. I always appreciated this because it teaches me that I don't have to say perfect words to God in prayer, because he actually can even interpret my grunts. You ever been in a spot where you don't even feel like you can pray because all you got to offer is groans and grunts? Yeah, that's some good praying right there. That's some good praying. That's like I don't even have the energy to put words together. My emotions are shot. My faith is thin. I'm struggling. That's the kind of prayer that we can go back to over and over and over again to keep our waiting on God active and not passive. It's better to pray and to keep praying and to keep leaning into God, even when we don't feel like we're getting the answer, than to sit back and just be idle, convinced that he's never going to move. Lastly, kill complacency with perspective. Instead of sitting back and being passive, move forward specifically by looking for God's perspective on your situation. Think of it like your eternal GPS. There is such a thing. And if you tune your ear to it, you can hear God talking. You can see his perspective. one of the first things he'll call you to do is to look ahead and to see where this ultimately goes. Look ahead to the future. Take the long view. And we're reminded, like of Romans 8, verse 28, that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him, who've been called according to his purpose. Called according to his purpose. That long view reminds me that God's got a plan. And that in time, maybe not in my time, maybe not on my timetable, but in time, God has a plan. And he will work all things together for the good of those who trust him, who are called according to his purpose. I can look ahead and know, I don't know when and how, but God is going to fix this. God is going to fix me. He's going to change me. He's going to bring me through this situation. I can also have a perspective of this moment that's not defeated, not looking at what I can't do, but looking at what I can do. I have a dear saint from my home church who, if I was to ask her what she's waiting for, I think she would confidently say, I'm waiting for God to take me home. And bless her heart, because that's her next step. That's it. I'm waiting for God to take me home. When that's your step, and she could look at that with despair and frustration and looking ahead knowing there's nothing I can do till then. That's not how she lives. You know what she does? She's not very able-bodied. She's not able to get out very much. Her health is constantly failing. But what she can do is write cards. In this moment she has right now, she's made a commitment to write birthday cards, anniversary cards, encouragement letters. It's something she can do to keep herself active instead of passive as she waits for God's timing in her life. How many things like that exist in your life that would take the waiting game that you're playing with God and would bring value and purpose to it if you focused on what is happening or what could happen right now? Lastly, the perspective of what God has already done in the past, looking backwards to Jesus and the resurrection, is everything we need to know about what God is capable of. In fact, I think this is a bold thing to do, to look specifically back to Jesus and to take notes on how he did it, because he's offering a masterclass in how to trust and how to wait. How many of you guys have ever seen these, it's kind of a growing niche right now called masterclass. I'm not talking about like literal college classes, but celebrity cooks or business leaders or speakers, writers, many people who have been very, very successful in their enterprises have all gotten together on a platform called Masterclass. And for $29.99, you can listen to the master teach you how to do it. And one of the ones that's jumped out to me is a guy named Aaron Franklin. Aaron Franklin is famous for barbecue. He's like one of the best meat-smoking guys on the planet. And every time that pops up on my screen, I think, man, I would love to take a master class from Aaron Franklin on how to smoke a pork butt, how to do brisket. I mean, people wait for hours every day to eat this guy's brisket. How does he do it? How does he make it taste better than what I seem to be able to do? I'd love to learn from him. Jesus offers a master class on waiting on God, waiting and enduring and even suffering, not hearing the answer that we want, as he prayed in the Garden of Gethsemane 3 times, asking, if there's another way besides the cross, Lord, let's go that route instead. But not my will, but yours be done. 3 times he was denied his desire to avoid the cross. 3 times he submitted in his moment of agony, in a very human moment, in his weakness. He trusted. And he trusted all the way unto death. See, one of the things we do as Christians is we don't just believe that a God who loves us could rescue us when we are on the brink of death, or who could bring hope and healing and restoration when we are on the brink of death. but we believe and trust and worship a God who has brought things back from the dead, who's brought people back from the dead. That's the ultimate waiting game, the ultimate patience, and the ultimate promise that Jesus offers to you and I. When he came out of that tomb 3 days later, he extended an invitation to everybody who would believe in him, that if you believe in me, though dying, you will yet live. That everything that's good in life, in this world and into the next world, will be yours if you place your faith in me. If you've never responded to an invitation that Jesus offers to make him your Lord and Savior, I can't think of a better day than today to do that very thing. Just to say yes to Jesus, to say yes and to acknowledge, Lord, my way is broken. I need you. I need you to come into my life and to take over, to submit to you so that you can lead, guide, and direct me. My sins forgiven, my future established, so that all things can work together for the good. I want to say yes to that. If that's you, as we sing these next songs, come meet me in the back. I'd love to talk with you and pray with you, help you take that next step. If you're online or even just in this room still, you could use the code on the screen as well to respond. For everybody else, maybe those who have taken an initial step to trust, will you take a step today to trust again and to wait a little bit longer, trusting that whatever God is doing, whether you can see it or not, that he's still working, he's still moving, and he's still plenty able to bring your hope and your healing. Waiting is the hardest part of hope, but our hope is secure. It is secured by the resurrection. There is no dashing of our hope, no matter how long we wait. God will keep his promises. So hang on. Wait for the Lord. In his time, you will see the blessing, the restoration, the healing, and the goodness that he has in store for you. I promise. I promise. Will you stand with me? And will you pray? Heavenly Father, God, we thank you for today. And we thank you for another opportunity, God, just to allow our life to intersect and to meet with you. Just to be candid, God, we struggle to wait for you. We are impatient people. And when we hurt, we want it fixed right away. When we suffer, we want it changed immediately. And God, it doesn't always happen that way. So God, change us in the process of waiting. We give you our hearts. We give you our will. We ask you to move in our lives, and to draw us closer to you in this struggle. We love you and thank you, and it's in your name that we pray. Amen.